I firmly believe that we live best what we teach, and we teach best what we live. And so consequently, I try to be honest with my students. I'll tell them sometimes, that's your response and it's a good response, but you're leaving something out. Or I'll say, class, at the end of the semester, if you were in opera, I would stand up and I would say, bravo. They see that I'm enthusiastic about it. I applaud them, I cheer them. But when they fall short, when they're just going at the surface and they're not giving me their best, I'll let them know. I said, there's more in there. We've got to dig deeper. We're working together, we're a tandem, we're a team. I can't teach well if they're not learning well, and I can't learn well if they're not teaching me well. So one feeds the other. How does it happen? It happens first with trust. My classrooms are places where the very first thing that I do is establish the environment. The environment is simply this. Everyone who's here belongs here. It's just us and our ideas. We may disagree, but at least I'm concerned with why you hold the position that you hold. I've never failed or lowered a grade for someone who disagreed with me. That's not my point. My point, however, is that I'll ask you for more if you're unclear. I'll ask you to tell me more because I want to learn. Okay, it's a safe place. We'll be civil, we'll respect one another, and once they understand that, yeah, I can express my point of view, everyone has a voice and they have the right to use it. The classroom for me is a sacred place. It's a place where we examine ideas, we pick them up and see how heavy they are. We pull them and see how elastic they are. We tear them apart and reconfigure them, and we make them look in different shapes and configurations. I want them to know why they think, they believe, they know what they know. Not trying to change them, but trying to make them stand on solid grounds when they have positions. We do that well most of the time. Sometimes we fall short, but we always pick one another up. Another thing in my classrooms, what we say here does indeed stay here. This is the Henderson Mafia. Nobody leaves this family alive. And they laugh, and I said, okay, we all leave alive, but nobody squeals. No squealers in this class. So they then share things that normally they wouldn't share. They tell things about themselves that they normally have not told even their significant others. And we listen, not to either approve or disapprove, but to just let them tell their stories. And learning sometimes is telling our stories through the concepts that teachers are trying to teach. Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? By performing in ways that are honest and open, we grow together, we learn together. Classrooms are places where people come and they come with very different dispositions. The first thing that I do in my class, the very first order of business, how are you? I haven't seen you in a few days. Some students said, I had a bad week. I had a good day. Oh, no, it doesn't matter what it was your day. I have learned over the years that if I don't feel my students here first, then I don't really understand them here. So I embrace them in my heart, I embrace them in my feelings, I empathize with them. I'm able to put myself as near as I possibly can in their place. And so consequently, nothing that they will say will shock me, nothing that they say will surprise me. Some things that they say I applaud, other things I just simply agree that these are tough times. For me, the classroom isn't preparation for the real world. It's as real as you're going to get it. And I tell my students, if we're going to make mistakes, let's make them here so that we don't have to make them, or we won't make them when we leave here. Sometimes students are not sure if they're politically correct. And I'll say, I don't know what that is. What are your thoughts? They're not correct or incorrect, they're your thoughts at the moment. If you have difficulty in terms of what do you call me, an African American or a Negro, I said, I don't know. My mother called me George. So we get to this. It's always the encounter. Teaching for me is the encounter. It's the encounter with ideas, it's the encounter with concepts, but the bottom line is I'm encountering another human being. I've taken some exotic trips, but all of them have been enlightening trips. Community service is important because that's the segue from theory to practice. What we learn in the classroom, we practice out in the community, but we do it with as much skill and as much honesty and as much commitment as we possibly can. That's what we do here in a place called the university. We give you theories and concepts and strategies. Community service is where you apply some of those things. It's where you learn. They listen to my stories and said, you've done so much. You've been involved in desegregating schools. You've been involved in helping start Head Start programs around Oklahoma, the rural areas. You've done so much. And I say, think what you can do as one student in one place At one time, I did what I could do with what I had. You now should do what you can do with what you have. I said, as you are now, I once was. As I am now, if you really get to the community service, you might come pretty close to it, kid. And they laugh. And there's always the one kid who'll say, yeah, I'm going to do better than you, old man, you'll see. And we laugh about that. But my point is this, it's not what you can do if you had more time or money or influence, it's what you do with what you have. Most students have a gift, but they want somebody else's gift, so they spend a lot of time trying to be who they're not. So you build your legacy by building on your own strengths, your own gifts. Find it, you've got to have the passion for it. In the center of your heart, you've got to have that itch, as I refer to it, and you have to scratch it. You're not going to be happy until you scratch that itch, and that itch is building something. I'm most proud of what happens to my students, what they accomplish and what they achieve. My legacy, therefore, if I have one, will be the accomplishments of my students who took a little bit of what they learned in my class and applied it elsewhere. That's the legacy. One of the most challenging things for me is to maintain enough composure to let my students go with my blessing. Because when we've been together for a while, as family members are, you grow very close and you want to stay close, but you have to let them go. And when they're gone, a piece of you goes too. That's the bittersweet part. The sweet part is that you had an opportunity to do that. And so watch that rite of passage. They start out very shy, some of them no voice, and I watch them leave and they go out and my goodness, they're young men and young women. Finally, they came that way and now they really are that way. They've taken off the facade and they go on to some wonderful things. And I'm not talking about titles, I'm talking about the wonderful things in terms of being fine human beings, caring, humane people. The right to be free implies the right to be different, I teach my students. That's the diversity piece. None of us is free until all of us are free. That's the other part of it. Now, we can help free other people by first freeing ourselves, our minds of negative thoughts, our minds of critical thoughts that are destructive. And once we indeed have a wholeness with ourselves, then we go on and we help free others and help others. I found the best students that one could find right here at the University of Oklahoma.